Reports came out yesterday that trade talks involving Pascal Siakam have been heating up across the NBA, and today, Michael Grange doubled down on these reports, discussing how Pascal Siakam's looming contract extension is not a sure thing from the Toronto Raptors end, given the high dollar amount he's going to likely command out there on the open market. The Raptors are committed to winning and want to make the best decisions going forward, and apparently a direction will end up being picked in the coming weeks. So if a deal ends up going down involving Pascal Siakam, it will likely occur within the next week or two, according to Michael Grange. So we have a lot of stuff to discuss on that front, because on top of it, the Atlanta Hawks also are doing some interesting things, as they're the team that have been named as the primary team targeting Pascal Siakam, the loudest team yelling to Masai Ujiri in order to make a trade happen, as one of their star rookies, a player that's notably been linked to the Toronto Raptors, especially come draft night. The draft happened a few days ago. A lot of draft picks have been getting signed over the weekend. He has not been signed. Kobe Bufkin has not been signed by the Atlanta Hawks, allowing him to still be traded, because once these players get signed, they're ineligible to be traded for the next 30 days. So it's interesting that the Atlanta Hawks have not signed their rookie to a initial contract, like a rookie scale contract even yet. So we got a lot of stuff to break down. For people that didn't see, basically, Michael Grange came out yesterday and said an interesting player to monitor on the NBA transaction market is Raptors Pascal Siakam. He keeps hearing his name out there per multiple sources. Atlanta's still interested. It's something to watch. Now, yesterday we broke down potential packages the Raptors could go through with the Atlanta Hawks, other teams that could get involved, all the other rumors and all the other reports. But Grange, as I said in the intro, he's doubling down today, saying that the Raptors, they look at a potential contract extension for Pascal Siakam, even though their plans were to run it back, were to sort of bring Fred VanVleet back into the fold, bring Pascal, make some minor tweaks, and hope the Raptors have a Miami Heat-esque season next year rather than what disaster we put on the court for this most previous season, right? That's what they were sort of indicating 3 weeks ago. But now, after Fred VanVleet ended up signing with the Rockets, and Grange also elaborated how the Raptors were kind of figuring out that Fred VanVleet was going to leave real time as well. The Raptors were willing to offer roughly $30 million per season for 3 years for Fred VanVleet, and if the Rockets hadn't been in a perfect situation to give Fred VanVleet a major amount of money, with their young team, with all their cap space, with Fred VanVleet in a free agent class that wasn't loaded with point guards, the Raptors likely would have retained Fred VanVleet at that 3 to 4 year contract at roughly $30 million per year, but the Rockets swooped in, picked him up for $40 million per year. So the Raptors didn't really have a shot at that point, and they figured that out real time. So the Raptors' plans were sort of to run it back going into next season, and they still want to be competitive going into next year. But one thing that they're evaluating big time over the course of the next week especially is how they want to go forward with star Pascal Siakam, and especially regarding the contract extension, because Pascal Siakam is an all-NBA dude this upcoming season. He could be making a super max contract, which, in today's NBA with the salary cap, restrictions in terms of you're over the luxury tax being very, very dire for your team, as if you're over that tax, your ability to make trades are hindered as you have a lesser window to take back salary. You lose your mid-level exception, and if you're in the luxury tax for a very long period of time, your draft pick ends up going straight to 30. So there's a lot of interesting issues that come into play when you're giving a guy like Pascal Siakam a potential supermax contract, heck, even a max contract that you have to factor in when you have guys like Scotty Barnes, who's going to be upcoming for, a much bigger pay increase, in the coming seasons after his rookie scale deal's over. OG Anunoby's also a free agent next summer. His defense is something that's really hard to replace on a team. Gary Trent Jr. is also looking for a contract extension this summer. Chris Haynes has come out and said that something lucrative is likely to happen with Gary Trent Jr. in terms of an extension with the Toronto Raptors. So there's a lot of money that Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster have to deal with, and they have to deal with responsibly. And they could look at Pascal Siakam and say, hey, given all these cap restrictions, given what we've seen already star players get traded for with the looming sort of restrictions coming, might make sense to deal him now, deal him to a squad while the interest is high, and figure it out from there, rather than sort of giving him all that money, and then if the Raptors want to pivot into a different direction, if they want to go younger on that Barnes, Gary Trent Jr., Precious timeline, OG Anunoby timeline, then it'll be harder to get off Pascal Siakam's money. So basically, Grange indicated the Raptors are weighing out all these options, figuring out if it makes sense, what the future holds for a Pascal Siakam future contract, extension, all these types of things, and what could potentially go down. But as I also indicated, the Hawks, they're a team that really want Pascal, and Grange indicated that the main guy that would likely be on the table is DeJounte Murray, who's averaging 21 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. He raised an interesting point, though, indicating how DeJounte Murray's in a very similar position to Pascal Siakam, being an unrestricted free agent after this upcoming season. So, you could be in a ballpark where you have to pay DeJounte Murray a heck of a lot of money in order to keep him, retain him on the Toronto Raptors, which would be interesting, would be something we'd have to see how a season played out with him manning the point guard spot, because if he was putting up the numbers he did in San Antonio, you probably live with that. A near triple-double every given night, playing elite defense, facilitating for teammates, knocking down threes, but with the Atlanta Hawks playing off the ball, hasn't been that effective. And, the interesting thing about DeJounte Murray's stats is his three-point shooting, because he can knock him down for sure, 34%, but not at an elite rate, not at a high-level rate. He can get hot, he can get streaky, but Grange said that he'd likely be the centerpiece of a potential package, but there could be other routes. And one name that was certainly brought up was Kobe Bufkin, who has his own thing going on with the Atlanta Hawks, as similar to what the Toronto Raptors did last season with Christian Koloko. While the Raptors were waiting to see if a deal were to go down with Kevin Durant, they didn't end up signing, their rookie. Now, Koloko was a second-round pick. Even rarer do we see first-round picks get sort of pushed off in terms of the types of contracts they could potentially land. And if you look at SportTrack.com, right, Kobe Bufkin, well, if you look at Grady Dick, right, Grady Dick was signed by the Toronto Raptors to a rookie-scale contract. Again, that's what you expect from a drafted player. But if you look at Kobe Bufkin, you don't see any contract signed there just yet. And a lot of rookies over this weekend got their contract signed. So given the timeline that Michael Grange discussed about the Toronto Raptors probably giving it a week to figure out what they could get for Pascal Siakam in potential trades, if it makes sense for Pascal to sort of be extended long-term. Does he fit what the Toronto Raptors are doing? Because Grange explicitly said it. Scottie Barnes, they want to go on that Scottie Barnes route. They want to go build this team more so to mold around Scottie than they do the older timeline, especially now with Fred VanVleet out of the lineup. That's sort of what Michael Grange is reporting, and I know a lot of people flame Michael Grange, and I probably should have said this earlier in the video or 7 minutes in, because people like to make the wild Grange hate comments, the reports on this stuff. They like to make the comments as soon as they see the title and hear Buddy's name. But Grange, he's a mouthpiece for Masai Ujiri. He's one of the only Raptors beat reporters that talk directly to the front office and get insight directly from the guys that are making the decisions. Now, does he get all the right information? Heck no. He doesn't get stuff guaranteed. Like we saw it with the Jalen Suggs stuff. We've heard it with stuff even this most recent season. Masai Ujiri kind of uses Michael Grange as a mouthpiece to spread whatever word he wants to hear out there on the open market. But in my opinion, it wouldn't make sense for Masai Ujiri to be spreading just fake news about Pascal Siakam, potentially being traded if there weren't actual talks going around. I believe Masai Ujiri is probably leaking this because the Toronto Raptors front office is very tight-lipped and are strategic about the information they release, and it usually ends up going to Michael Grange, whether it's right or wrong, whether it ends up being correct or not. But if they're talking about potential trades, if they're talking about these types of things, I believe it wouldn't make sense for them to just not be holding any Pascal Siakam trade talks, any extension talks, and leak something like this. It's just a ripe way to frustrate your star player for no good reason. I think they'd probably leak this to get the discussion going, the dialogue going, about how Pascal Siakam might be available. I might be the San Antonio Spurs looking to build around Victor Wembanyama. I wouldn't have thought about reaching out about Pascal, but now that he's potentially available, I'll reach out about this. Masai Ujiri doesn't want to make the initial call and, loses the leverage on that front. It's all a big game of 40 chess for Masai. Whether you think he's playing it right or not, I think this wouldn't get leaked. This information wouldn't come out from Michael Grange if there weren't actually any deals going down. But let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. I shouldn't have brought up a San Antonio Spurs potential trade partners. They've been finessing us as of late, but that is what it is. Let me know what you guys think about this, all these updates regarding Pascal Siakam. You guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to see the latest on Damian Lillard, definitely check out this video that's probably over my head right now. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.